think it's well known, if you put 10 bookkeepers in a room and ask them to do one thing, they'll all have 10 different ways of doing it, which is fine when you're on your own, but you can't quality control the business as it grows if you allow that to happen. So we do have checklists, we have processes, and they do get checked. But I have a practice manager who will approve any reports that before they go out to clients. So there's real checks in place. And just on a general level, I suppose everything's liveried across the business too. So all our emails are templated, our scripts are templated, all the touch points with clients would have been thought about and documented.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be an international one. Our guest runs the bookkeeping firm Women Who Count, based in the United Kingdom. She also sits on the board of the International Association of Bookkeepers. She is passionate about educating her clients around their finances and recognizes the difference a great bookkeeper can make to the lives of small business owners. Her commitment and passion have been recognized by being a finalist with the UK Women in Business Awards. Sarah Palmer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Michael. Lovely to talk.
Yes, and I will just let everyone know that we're actually not related, but we do have the same last name. So, Sarah, before we get into what's going on over in the UK and what's going on in your business, tell us a little bit about how you got started in bookkeeping.
Oh, wow. I suppose I got into bookkeeping by default, really. I grew up in a family business, and it was always made very clear if I wanted to earn any money, then I had to go and work for it. So I often found myself in the office with the ladies there, and the older I got, the more I did. I suppose I was quite lucky. I used to get involved with a lot of the accountant meetings, and he was very patient and really good at explaining why certain transactions need to be coded in a certain way and what the reason and the outcome was. But thinking about it, well, I suppose my real takeaway from that time was watching what my father did with that information. He made so many business decisions based on what his bookkeepers and what the accountants told him. So whenever I'm working with any clients now, I'm always asking myself, what would the business owner want to know from me? You know, the numbers tell a story, and I kind of feel it's my job to translate that for the client.
Wow. What I hear in that is incredible mentorship throughout your career.
Yes.
Both from the accountants that you worked around, and as well seeing your father work in business and how the outcomes, the result of the bookkeeping, the result of the accounting, how it made a difference for him. And now here you are taking that and providing that back to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I realized how lucky I was till now when I'm, the other side of the fence and looking at this. Beautiful.
Now, tell us about the transition. How did you transition into being in business for yourself?
Well, I suppose I started Women Who Count in 2009, and it was after getting divorced. I had 2 young children and I had no income. I suppose I needed something flexible to work around the boys, and I also needed something that was low cost to set up. And looking back on the experience I had, bookkeeping was actually an obvious path for me to take. So that was how Women Who Count was born, if you like. And unfortunately, I can't claim that I came up with the name either. It was a dear friend of mine that came up with the name, because I'm always asked about this. But we were out celebrating the divorce papers, and it was her play on words when I was explaining to her what I would like to do. So yes, that was where the name came from too. So I have to thank her enormously for that brilliant piece of marketing, really, because everyone does remember that name.
Yes, and it was somewhat, at the time, it was just one woman who counted, but it was a self a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will, because you now have a team of
I do, yeah.
a team. So it is plural, women who count, and you've built a wonderful business around that. What's been the feedback from your name, the Women Who Count?
There's no feminist issues here with me. It was just, as I said, it was a play on words, but everybody likes it, both men and women. I even picked up a client last week, and it actually came from a Google search, and it was the name that caught her imagination, and she liked that. So, and I kind of think it's actually more relevant now, 10 years on, than it was at the time, because gender equality is sort of big news at the moment. And I suppose it does suit who I am, and the ladies I have working for me all have children, and what's very important to me is flexible working hours, and that runs through the business. So it is a true reflection of who I am, actually, but it's probably something I grew into.
It's interesting. Did you always think that, speaking about growing into it, I mean, you've told your story. You needed flexibility. You had children. You were getting divorced. And so this is what you needed. And now here you are providing some of that back to the women who work for you. Was that always in the picture, or did that evolve itself?
That's evolved itself. It was a practical, consideration for me at the time. But no, it's definitely something which actually I'm proud to stand for at the moment. And I have to say, my practice manager, she's actually quite a good story to tell. She actually previously was a mortgage advisor and a branch manager for one of the banks over here. And she got married, had a child, left work, and then couldn't get back into working. And she was cleaning, which is nothing wrong with cleaning, but she was a bright woman. It was the only work she could get with the flexible hours around her son's school hours. So anyway, she's come to me, and she's genius, absolutely genius, very bright girl. And all she needed was an opportunity to be able to work around her family. So it's really important for me to see that. And I also think there's actually quite a big waste of education in society just because women haven't got that opportunity. So it's only a case of, making work to suit around families. And it's not difficult. It needs a bit of thought, but it's not difficult.
Yeah, well, it's inspiring. You're making a difference in many ways, not just for business owners, but also for your staff. Beautiful. I'd love to hear a little bit of the story of, those early days in your business, what it was like. Many of our listeners are starting out, and it can be challenging. What was the journey like for you?
I suppose marketing was the hardest thing to understand. So initially, I suppose it was just legwork at the beginning. I went to every networking event. I walked up and down every high street. I knocked on doors. I left leaflets. I told everybody I knew what I was doing. And I do remember one of my first clients came from chatting to a parent on the sidelines of a football match that we were watching with our kids. And actually, they're still a client now. So it was just getting the message out, really. And then also just strategic partnerships have become fundamental, really, to creating a stream of constant referrals. By that, I mean sort of business coaches, accountants. Accountants were a really good source of referrals, but I found it hard to work out how to get those meetings to start with. But once I figured out that every new client I got had a new accountant, and I could arrange a meeting with their accountant on the pretense of discussing something about our new, mutual client's work, I could get in front of that accountant and then actually use that meeting to really promote myself. So that was a good way of starting those relationships. Banks were also another good one for me to start with. I had a really good relationship with my personal business manager. And what I realised was that he managed a portfolio of clients that were actually my ideal customer. He was really good at promoting my services to his customer base. And that was another way which got me going to start with. But as the business has grown, just by sheer, by numbers, I get more referrals because clients do refer me on, and the more clients you have, the more referrals you get. And the business really has grown through those referrals. But it has changed over time. And my job now is more nurturing those relationships, maintaining those strategic relationships, looking after clients so that those referrals keep coming in. But what I have noticed probably in the last 6 months, year, is that actually the newer clients I have come from social media. And I had a big rebrand last year, a new website off the back of this. And I kind of really think that the online presence is really going to be important going forward. So that's my new plan.
Wow. You've given some really great thoughts and ideas about marketing your business. And the core theme, I think, there is the relationships. It's not just, hey, here's some people and they're gonna provide leads or referrals or whatever the case may be. In every single instance, there was some relationship that you leveraged. It was absolutely. A good relationship that it starts with. So for our listeners, like, think about where do you have good relationships? I mean, that'd be the first place to start, even though it might not occur like there's any opportunity, but nurture and develop those relationships and get the word out, like you've done with the bank manager, with the people on your the soccer league, with not just accountants, but the clients of those accountants. You leverage those relationships. A beautiful story outlining how it can work and where to focus. Now, you started out, your business started to grow. Then what happened?
So yes, transitioning to having staff, that did not go too well to start with. I suppose I was actually quite good at the marketing, better than I thought, and I ended up having more clients than I could deal with quicker than I was expecting. So obviously, my next thought was I need help, and I fell into the obvious trap of employing a trainee, basically because they were cheap, and I also had the grand idea that I could mould them into my way of thinking and my way of doing things. But that was very wrong. It actually turned out to be quite expensive. So I was paying them £7 an hour, but then I was also not billing out my time because I was training them. So I was paying the girl £7 an hour. I was not charging out £30 an hour. So she became a £37 an hour expense. Then I had to double check her work. And I just basically didn't have the time or the money to support that, and decided I could do it much quicker and cheaper myself. So I went back to being on my own, which again, that lasted for a while. But then you go back thinking, I can't manage this on my own. So my second attempt probably wasn't a lot better than my first attempt. I did learn something. So I actually employed someone who was older and more experienced, and we met. We had a coffee, and I liked her, and we agreed that she was going to start one of my clients. And I remember, horrible memory now. I remember going to a client and sat in front of the client and introducing this lady and saying she's going to be fantastic, and she's, reassuring them that she'd be able to pick up from where I left off. And it became very obvious very quickly that she had no idea how to use the software. And, I can only blame myself because I'd actually never seen the lady do the job that I was paying her to do. So that was an embarrassing and painful lesson to learn. So that didn't go any further either. But I did crack it in the end. And it was actually a conversation that I had with Debbie at Pure Bookkeeping. And she helped me understand the process of how to, employ people successfully. She made it really clear that I needed to have a really good interview process and make sure that I could hire someone who was very good at the job. And it now also made sense to me that if I hired someone good and paid them well, they could actually walk into the business and start earning on day one. And the other thing she taught me was I didn't have to have someone full time. The first person could have 2 days a week work. So I gave them 2 days of my work and then spent my time building myself up back to 5 days, and then gave them some more work until they had the amount of work they wanted, and I could build myself back up again. And then I took on a second person on the same premise, that I gave them 2 days of my work and I built myself up, and then I built them. And what I realized was that this was like a repeat process, and it worked. But also I had to realize I had to take a pay cut to take that first person on, and I had to be able to afford that. But then once I got to 3 ladies working for me, and they're all on different part-time bases, I was now making more money than I was on my own. But there was a process that you had to go through to get to that point. But all I can say is you will get there if that was a really successful method to grow. And today, now I have 8 ladies working for me, and I do none of the bookkeeping. I still do some of the client meetings, but it's all self-fulfilling now.
Wonderful. I mean, it's a very parallel story to the story that Debbie would tell as well about her experience hiring and making mistakes. And many have made those mistakes. I'm sure there's many listeners that are bobbing their head saying, yeah, you know what, this sounds like me. Speak a little bit about the structures that you put in place, because you have staff, there's 8 people. How do you ensure that they all do the things that you want them to do?
We have a very uniform way of approaching every client, and every client's work is documented in exactly the same way. And all the ladies understand that I expect them to follow the same way of processing the work and recording all of our reports. And I think it's well known, if you put 10 bookkeepers in a room and ask them to do one thing, they'll all have 10 different ways of doing it, which is fine when you're on your own, but you can't quality control the business as it grows if you allow that to happen. So we do have checklists, we have processes, and they do get checked. I have a practice manager who will approve any reports up before they go out to clients. So there's real checks in place. And just on a general level, I suppose everything's liveried across the business too. So all our emails are templated, our scripts are templated, all the touch points with clients would have been thought about and documented.
Beautiful. You would have Michael Gerber, who is the author, for those that don't know, of E-Myth. And I'm sure many, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you've listened to Michael Gerber. It's about building a system-dependent business, which is what you've done, Sarah. Did you always intend to do that?
No. But what I did realise as I went along, this was, if I was going to have a scalable business, this is what I had to do. I couldn't let it be ad hoc. It was impossible to manage. Absolutely impossible. And I have read that book, and it's gold. Yeah, no, if you want to have a scalable business and you want to have the peace of mind that the business can work and grow with your input, without your input, it has to be documented. It has to be systematized.
Beautiful. Quite a business you've built, and you have now working more on the business development. You've talked a little bit about going to, another level of marketing, leveraging online marketing. What else do you see in terms of the future for your business and where your business is going?
The bookkeeping profession is changing hugely, partly driven by the softwares. What I see as challenges in the UK, currently we've got Brexit and the software companies. I think they're the 2 biggest issues bookkeepers need to deal with, really. So, yeah, if I consider Brexit first, I've had 5 clients go into administration in the past year, which is extraordinary. And if I look at how their businesses have worked, I can attribute 4 of these to customers withdrawing business, with the uncertain financial climate. However, I've got clients that are doing really, really well. I suppose my response to this is just making sure that the marketing function of the business is really strong, because I'm obviously going to need new clients to replace those that are in trouble. I think the result of Brexit will be a recession in the UK. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing for bookkeepers. When I set up Women Who Count in 2009, we were one of the worst recessions we'd seen in decades. And a lot of people said to me that they thought I was nuts starting a business when I did. But I'm very glad I ignored them. I think for bookkeepers, what I realised was people trade down in a recession. So I was picking up a lot of work which business owners were taking away from expensive accountants, because they realised bookkeepers can do a lot of that work. So actually, I think there's an opportunity for bookkeepers, but I think we all just need Brexit to happen and we can all get on with what happens next. I think the software companies pose a greater threat to traditional bookkeeping. And by traditional bookkeeping, I mean trading time for money. The software companies are aggressively marketing actually to the end users. I've got clients now that have an opinion about the software that they want us to use, whereas 10 years ago, they wouldn't have a clue. So, and I think they're also feeling that they only need to subscribe to one of these new cloud softwares and, as if by magic, all their financial needs are met. And I think that's a slightly misleading message, really. And I have picked up clients that are now, got a new cloud subscription and it's all fallen apart. They need a bookkeeper to unpick it and sort out the mess. But I don't think that's really a solid, way forward for me to base the business on. So pricing is where I think the next, if you can master a transition to sort of value pricing away from the, traditional time, hourly billing, I think that's where we can gain advantage too. So, for instance, I will now bill for the production of a VAT return rather than the time it took me to actually produce that VAT return. It is, I have to say, it's a very difficult area and I'm still learning. And I have got clients that are still on an hourly rate because I think that's fair, or a fairer way to both parties. But it is a way, I think bookkeepers need to look at their value and really promote the value that they offer their clients. I kind of see that the way the business will go forward is that I'll have more clients on a slightly lower fixed fee, but my profits will increase probably by adopting the efficiencies of the new softwares. I also see that the geography of my clients will change because more people are adopting cloud-based softwares, and also the culture that goes with that. There isn't that necessary need to have a face-to-face. I can do an awful lot more of my meetings on Zoom or, Skype, that type of thing. Sorry, I feel like I've gone off on tangent. Does that answer your question, Michael?
It does. I think it's incredibly valuable to hear inside the workings of your business, and as well what you're dealing with and what you're working on. I mean, this is it, right? It's like our listeners get to listen in on what you're seeing happening and your perspective. It brings up a great question that I have for you, which is, tell us a little bit about your role with the International Association of Bookkeepers and how that's unfolding.
Yeah, that's interesting. I enjoy that role. So I sit on the board of the International Association of Bookkeepers, and that's one of our peak bodies in the UK. So obviously, as bookkeepers, we need to subscribe to a supervisory body, and that's one of them. So I get to set the strategy basically for how the organisation will go forward. And there is, again, in fact, I had a meeting with Xero this morning, and it was interesting to hear what they want to amalgamate with some of the peak bodies here. And their big push is for education. So, which was fantastic to hear. And they're really, really in support of bookkeepers and really in a place to want to engage with bookkeepers and up their value. And help them to do that with, additional softwares and further training. So that was good. And then another role which I also do is I actually go to the Treasury, which is our government. Sit in the House of Parliament with the government. I'm on a focus group there, so I bring a lot of the problems that us as bookkeepers have to them, to the government to listen to, and it's a lot where the policies are made. That's an interesting insight too, because I often hear about what's going on before it hits the outside world. And it's nice to be able to bring that back into my business and, highlight some of the problems that are on the horizon for my clients. So that makes that's a good angle for Women Who Count. But it's great to have that feedback loop, if you like. I've got clients that have problems and I can go and feed it back at a level that I hope will make a difference.
It's remarkable.
Well, my opinion would make a difference. So
it absolutely will. And the International Association of Bookkeepers, there is as well. Tell me a little bit about that association and how it's supporting bookkeepers.
So the IAB has been around for over 40 years now. So I think it's one of the oldest bodies over here. We're very friendly, very supportive, big in education. So that aligns really well with Xero's mission too. They're Ofqual regulated, which is one of the only peak bodies over here. And Ofqual is our education awarding body. So the quality of the examinations are really high. What else can you say?
That means that the government has said that being certified by the International Association of Bookkeepers in the UK means that you're actually it's at a higher level. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that is. Sorry, you explained that far better than I did. Yes. And the other area, well, there's three areas. So education, that would be their strongest piece. They are also compliance. So obviously your anti-money laundering, they are a supervisory body there. And also for benefits as such, so members in practice. So that's, I suppose, where I make the most noise, because I want to be able to support bookkeepers in their bookkeeping journey. So I suppose that's why I put most value, I suppose.
Wonderful. And it sounds like a fantastic organization with a lot of benefits. So for any of our UK listeners, it's definitely something to take a look at and see if it might be a fit for you and your business. You've also been recognized by being a finalist. And now at this time of this recording, we're not sure yet who is the winner, but you're a finalist out of, what was it that you said? We were having a chat before this conversation, 800, 600 other bookkeepers. You've come down to a finalist for the UK Women in Business Awards.
Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry, it's not just bookkeeping, it's businesses in the UK. So yes, there was 800 entries, and I have been shortlisted for 2 categories. So professional development and for leadership. And we are... The whole team's going, we've actually got the award ceremony this evening. So when I finish this, we should be shooting off to that. So fingers crossed. I would love to win one of those categories. But I have to acknowledge it's a big achievement to even be a finalist. So, but fingers crossed, it would be great for the team.
Wonderful. Well, you know what? I think our listener would agree that here you are a winner in terms of the type of person that you are, your commitment to your clients, your commitment to the industry and making a difference, and really your passion about building the business and being successful, but not just for yourself, but for all the stakeholders, your staff, your clients, and the industry as a whole. I think it's fantastic. And what an inspirational story. Sarah, if people wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that or learn more about you and your business?
I suppose I'd signpost people to our new website, which is womenaccount.co.uk, or you can find us on Facebook, or, I'm very happy if people want to email me directly if they've got any questions. I'm very, very happy to answer any of those questions. I really do enjoy watching people grow and develop.
Wonderful. And I will mention that we do have a budding, very, very early days budding Facebook group for the UK Successful Bookkeepers. So if you're part of the larger Successful Bookkeeper community group on Facebook, you can also join the UK Successful Bookkeepers. And Sarah, you're one of the budding members in that group. So that's another place to connect and have conversations with Sarah if that works. Sarah, this has been awesome. I really hope that you win that award tonight, and we'll celebrate and cheer you on regardless of it. But as I said, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.